I had a grandfather who lived up in Canada. He had one job his entire life. Can you imagine that? It was a very simple job. It was working in a foundry, but I mean, that's unthinkable today. In other words, you will probably have many career changes in your lifetime. And certainly if you're a photographer, you will too. With me, it hasn't been a career change, but it's been adapting to the world changing. You've heard me say I worked for all these different types of publications. And I fell in love with each of them, and I did the most, but I had one central point, and that was always photography. Now, what type of photography do you like to do? What's your favorite type of work?
I don't know. Like, I'm kind of interested in like the advertisement look of photography, and I want to get more into that.
That's good, though. You have a direction. That's excellent, because I sometimes do the same thing myself. I imagine something, and I say, how can I put these elements together? I tell you, it's been made a lot easier in a time of digital. You can do all those things. There's essentially nothing that you can't do today. You can do just about anything, which is great. Okay, I'd like to, yeah.
Do you ever get intimidated shooting?
Okay, do I ever get intimidated? Interesting, that's a very excellent question. Do I ever get intimidated? I have when I was younger, but you know, there's an interesting thing that came over me at a certain point. I said to myself, I've gone through this war and that war. You know, I'm speaking of the shoot wars that Marilyn Monroe scared me to death in those early days. It really did. Here I was, I would say today, totally unqualified to be doing that shoot. But I wouldn't let the other people know that. So I acted like I had the world on a string and I could handle it. And I must say that what I often say to myself if I got a big shoot coming up is I've accomplished all these things, I can certainly go on and do even bigger things. And the interesting thing is, sometimes when I've been under the maximum stress and I've reached the furthest, that's when I've even surprised myself. A case in point, and again, I'm leveling with you, that those pictures out at Vasquez Rocks, of the two models of two people, which was the same girl, by the way. We shot her out at Vasquez Rocks, and then we shot her in our studio and then put the two together in Photoshop. That was a very difficult shoot because a lot of things seemed to happen, including it started raining when we were out at Vasquez Rocks. But you know, you don't say no. You just keep doing it and finding a way, and you can do it. Am I intimidated? There are people trying to intimidate me, but the funny thing is occasionally without intending to, I have intimidated other people. That's not my goal. I'd like to do just the contrary, just the opposite. But you can be intimidated if you allow yourself to be. You have to believe in yourself and know that you've had a number of accomplishments, which I'm sure every one of you have had accomplishments. Once you realize that, not to flaunt it, not to be arrogant, but just to be confident, that is very important. Yes?
Do you think that Photoshop is a positive input on photography?
It has been for me, but it's misused by certain people.
Yeah, being able to like edit out people's imperfections.
Well, it depends. It can be used badly, and it can be used very badly, as a matter of fact. But for me, I've lived the other way, and boy, I tell you, I'm glad I have it today. I really am. Because I knew the computer, because I'd use it for word processing and everything. But suddenly I saw the possibilities. It was my darkroom. It was my Repernar, which was a device we used to have for photographing and rephotographing chromes and building pictures. It was all that and so much more. I felt emancipated personally by the computer. And the other thing is I would do work on my own. And that usually ends up really paying off, because if I really care about something, and the guys who work with me will tell you this, I don't just do it for money alone. I mean, you want to make a living, want to keep going, but I'll do anything if it's a creative thing to do. And again, on the computer, we're particularly able to do that. It's not this sole thing that Photoshop and digital is around, but it certainly helps. But no single area is the most important. It is all important. It's a passion for life. It really is. One of the great things about photography, it releases you to go and engage in all these things and meet people and do things. And that's what I've enjoyed so much through the years, through my career. Yes? This young man in the back row.
Yeah, in your interpretation of every time you go on a shoot and you're shooting, you know, thousands of people in your lifetime, is there certain key elements that you always take with you, that's embedded in your soul, that it works for you every time?
What is embedded in me, and I don't mean to overly simplify it, is frankly a love of people and a love of life. And I hope you've seen it. If you think back to what you've seen tonight, you will generally see they're happy pictures of people having fun. I want to operate as spontaneously as possible with any camera I use. Now, I switched from Nikon to Canon years ago. And first, they wanted to just give me everything. I said, I'm not sure I want it. It's quite an offer, isn't it? But I took one camera and carried it around all day long. It's like a cowboy living with his gun. And that's basically what I did. I wanted to know every bump on it, every ripple on the side of it, what it meant, what it felt like. I leave my newest camera sitting on my desk just so I can pick it up and feel it and try it and test it and see what its limitations are, what it will do. I want it to be part of me. And you don't have to have necessarily the latest, but you have to be at one with your equipment. You really do. So yeah, I can think, if I'm photographing any individual in here, I can think of you or you and not have to worry about too many things. I mean, I want it all to flow together. And that's been very important to me. Know your equipment, know your lights, know anything you want to do. And you are empowered if you have that. And if you don't have that down, if you don't have that wired, you're going to be limited. Yes?
Where did you go after high school and how did you get your career started?
Okay, I went to a lot of places. To begin with, I never held a job very long. I was curious and I kept changing jobs and I was always dissatisfied. I left after 1 year of high school where I was in Canada, and then I went to a special school in Buffalo, New York. It was the only one of its type at the moment. It was a vocational high school teaching photography. So we'd spend half a day with traditional subjects and then half a day with photography. I started having dreams. One of the dreams was I wanted to work on a newspaper. I dreamed of working, I think a Denver Post, I think, was one I wanted to work on. I don't know why the Denver Post. It was ridiculous with no reason, but it seemed like a cool place to live and to work. And so that was one. And I never got the Denver Post, but I did get a small paper, first a weekly, later a daily. And, you know, the funny thing, I'm going to tell you something. This is the con part of me. I convince myself of something. And when I do that, I find, it's a strange thing, I find I can make it happen. And that's what I've often done. And I thought, as I say, I wanted to work on a newspaper. I looked at what they were doing, thought, how can I do it better? And that's what I did. I was able to. And I was able to convince people through my conviction. Now, the other thing I'll say to you, just probably in winding up here, unless I'll keep you here too long, is basically you have to, as I've said earlier, you have to enjoy yourself, care about it, have a lot of interests, and the great thing about in photography, you can expand your interests through photography. You name it, if you want to look at children, you could take a camera and just photograph children and do it in such an unusual way. You'd create a whole new look. And then you have to say, how am I going to market that work? Well, maybe you could find maybe you put a book project together, or maybe you do a show. Whatever you want. There's not anything that you can't find a way to make happen. And so it's called inventing yourself. And there have been many inventions of Douglas Kirkland, and they haven't stopped, and I don't think they'll ever stop. Okay, thank you very much. Nice being with you.